You did the work. You walked through the fire. You set the boundaries, faced the shadows, and finally, you found a quiet space inside yourself. You expected to feel free, purposeful, alive. Instead, you feel nothing. A profound, unnerving emptiness where your ambition used to be. You lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, and the goals that once drove you now seem like distant, meaningless echoes. And a terrifying thought begins to creep in. Did I do it wrong? Did all that work break me? What if I told you that this hollowness is not a sign that you are broken? What if it is the undeniable proof that you are finally becoming whole? Carl Jung discovered a sacred paradox at the heart of all true transformation. He found that the spiritual awakening does not energize you, it empties you. It is the necessary, terrifying death of your old motivation, the one that was fueled by fear, by the need to prove yourself, by the endless hunger for approval. That engine has died, and in its silence, you are finally free. But you have not yet learned the language of this new freedom. Today, we will not try to restart your old engine. We will honor its silence. We will journey into what the alchemists called the Nigredo, the dark night of the soul. We will explore why this profoundly unnerving emptiness is not an end, but a beginning. And we will give you a practical guide to survive this fertile darkness, so that a new kind of motivation, one not born of fear, but of soul, can finally emerge. This is a guide for the space between worlds, for the quiet after the storm. If you are in this place and you are ready to stop fighting the emptiness and start listening to it, I invite you to make a new vow. Write in the comments below, I am trusting the process.
To finally achieve freedom, only to find yourself in a silent, empty desert. This is the great, painful paradox of the awakening journey. The silence it leaves behind is terrifying, because for your entire life, your inner world has been anything but silent. It has been run by a loud, demanding, and incredibly powerful engine, and you have mistaken the roar of that engine for the sound of your own soul. To understand why that engine has died, we must first understand what it was. Jung made a critical distinction between two kinds of motivation. The first is what we call persona-driven motivation. This is the motivation of the mask. It is a hot energy. It feels like anxiety, like striving, like a relentless push forward. It is fueled by the need to prove, to achieve, to be seen as good, successful, or worthy. Its operating system is fear. The fear of failure, the fear of judgment, the fear of being abandoned. This motivation is not an expression of who you are. It is a compensation for the fear that you are not enough. It is, in essence, a high-functioning anxiety disguised as ambition. The second kind of motivation is what we call self-driven motivation. The self, in Jungian terms, is your true, whole, authentic core. This motivation is a cool energy. It does not push from behind with fear. It pulls from ahead with a quiet, magnetic sense of purpose. It does not feel like striving. It feels like unfolding. It is not fueled by a deficit, by what you lack. It is fueled by an overflow, by the simple, joyful expression of who you already are. The persona is motivated by a desperate need to get love. The self is motivated by a quiet impulse to give love. Now here is the truth that will set you free. The profound work you have done, the shadow work, the boundary setting, the escape from the psychological prisons, was a direct assault on the fuel source of your old engine. Your persona-driven motivation was fueled by a specific blend of toxins: your fear of being unlovable, your terror of conflict, your deep unconscious belief that your worth was tied to your productivity. And because you did the work, because you started to integrate your shadow and find your worth inside yourself, the fuel line to that fear has been cut. The engine did not just run out of gas. You consciously, courageously starved it to death. And this is why the emptiness feels so profound. You have successfully killed the only motivation system you have ever known. Let's imagine Chloe again, our nurse. For years, her motivation was crystal clear: to be the best nurse on her floor, to get that promotion, to be seen as the most competent, the most compassionate, the most reliable. But why? Because deep in her shadow, she carried the wound of a childhood where she felt invisible. Her relentless drive was a desperate attempt to build a persona so valuable, so needed, that she could never be abandoned again. Her ambition was a trauma response. Then she did the work. She learned to set boundaries, she started to listen to her own needs, and she began to heal that childhood wound. And one day, she looked at the posting for the promotion that she had wanted for so long, and she felt nothing. The goal was still there, but the fear that fueled the chase was gone. The engine was silent. This was not a sign of depression. It was a sign of healing. But in that moment, it felt like death. This is the stage the ancient alchemists called the Nigredo, the blackening, the decomposition. It is the winter of the soul. A necessary, sacred, fallow period where the old self is allowed to fully dissolve, creating a rich, dark, fertile soil for the new self to grow. You cannot plant a new garden on top of an old, dying one. You must first pull the weeds, turn the soil, and let the land rest. The emptiness you are feeling is not a void. It is the fertile darkness of that fallow field. Your soul is not broken. It is regenerating. And this is perhaps the most difficult act of faith on the entire spiritual path: to trust the wisdom of winter, to believe that in the silence something is being gestated, to understand that your motivation was not killed, it was composted. It is being transformed from the hot, anxious energy of fear into the cool, quiet, life-giving energy of purpose. But this process is not fast, and it is not easy. The world outside does not understand the sacredness of a fallow season. It demands productivity. It demands answers. And your own mind, long accustomed to the roar of the old engine, will scream at the silence, terrified that you have lost your way. So how do we navigate this winter? How do we survive this sacred darkness when the demands of the world feel so relentless? The soul, you see, can afford to wait, but the bills cannot.
So how do we honor the soul's winter when the world demands an eternal summer? How do we navigate this sacred darkness day by day? This is where our work must become grounded, practical, and deeply compassionate. But before we explore the strategies for survival, we must address a critical distinction. And I need you to hear this with your full attention. The spiritual emptiness of the Nigredo is not the same as clinical depression. While they may share symptoms, a loss of interest, a feeling of flatness, profound fatigue, their origins are different. Clinical depression often feels like a barren, meaningless void. The Nigredo, though painful, feels like a fertile, meaningful void. There is a quiet, underlying sense of purpose, even if you cannot name it, a sense that you are not breaking down, but being unmade for a sacred purpose. However, if your emptiness is accompanied by persistent feelings of worthlessness, significant changes in sleep or appetite, or thoughts of self-harm, it is absolutely essential that you seek support from a qualified mental health professional. This journey of the soul does not replace the need for professional care. It supports it. Your safety is paramount, always. Now, for those of you who recognize your state as this sacred fallow season, how do we survive? The first principle is this: lower the bar. Then, lower it again. This is the practice of minimum viable maintenance. During this time, your goal is not to thrive. It is not to be productive. Your goal is to endure. Imagine your life is a large ship. Previously, you spent all your energy trying to sail it faster, polishing the brass, organizing the cargo. Now, a great storm has hit. The engine is dead. Your only job is to keep the ship from sinking. That's it. This means doing the absolute minimum required to keep your life functional. You go to work. You feed your children. You pay your bills. But you release yourself from the expectation of excellence. You give yourself permission to serve a mediocre dinner, to let the laundry pile up for one more day, to turn in a project that is good enough instead of perfect. This is not laziness. It is a profound act of energy conservation. You are redirecting all of your available life force away from external performance and toward the massive internal work of regeneration that is happening beneath the surface. Let's think of Chloe, our nurse, in her Nigredo phase. The old Chloe would have volunteered for the extra shift, organized the potluck, and stayed late to comfort a colleague. The new Chloe, the one in the void, looks at her schedule. Her only goal is to get through her required shifts, care for her patient safely, and go home. She feels a pang of guilt when she says no to the extra shift. The ghost of her old persona whispers that she is being selfish. But a deeper, quieter voice, the one she is just learning to hear, says, "My energy is for my own healing now. That is my only job." This is a radical reprioritization. The second principle is lean on structure, not inspiration. Motivation is gone. Inspiration is a distant memory. During this time, your habits and routines become your skeleton. They are the bones that will hold you up when your psychic muscles have dissolved. You do not need to feel like going for a walk. You just put on your shoes and walk for 5 minutes. You do not need to feel inspired to journal. You just open the notebook and write one sentence. Today, I feel empty. That's enough. These small, consistent actions are anchors. They are threads of connection to the physical world, preventing you from drifting away entirely into the formless void within. They are your way of telling your soul, "I am still here. I am waiting for you." And finally, the third and most important principle is to consciously communicate your process, but only to those who have earned the right to hear it. You do not owe everyone an explanation for your winter. Most people, still running on their own fear-based engines, will not understand. They will try to fix you. They will tell you to think positive. Their well-intentioned advice will feel like a violation. Your job is to protect your fragile, regenerating state from this. With most people, you can use simple, neutral language. "I'm going through a quiet period right now. I'm conserving my energy. I appreciate the invitation, but I don't have the capacity for that at the moment." You do not need to justify or defend your process. It is yours. It is sacred. But if you are lucky enough to have 1 or 2 people in your life, a trusted friend, a partner, a therapist, who can simply hold space, then you can offer them a simple script.
Chloe might say to her partner, "I'm not depressed in the way you might think. It's more like my inner operating system is being upgraded, and the whole system is offline while it happens. I don't need you to fix me or cheer me up. I just need you to trust that I am on a journey. The greatest gift you can give me right now is your quiet presence, and to not take my emptiness personally." This is a profound act of vulnerability and strength. It is the beginning of teaching the world how to treat the new you. Minimum viable maintenance, structure over inspiration, conscious communication. These are not grand, heroic acts. They are the small, sturdy tools of the soul's winter. They are how you tend to the fallow field. They are how you create a safe, protected space for the slow, mysterious, and sacred work of becoming. And as you do this, as you patiently hold this space for yourself, you prepare the ground for the next even more mysterious phase, the journey of resurrection.
Once you have learned to survive the winter, how do you begin to invite the spring? This is the great mystery. The resurrection of your motivation does not happen by force. You cannot will yourself back to life. It is not an act of doing, but of allowing. It is a process of emergence. Jung, drawing from the deep well of alchemical wisdom, laid out a 3-stage process for this emergence. It is not a checklist to be completed, but a path to be walked with patience and trust. The first stage is conscious dissolution. Before something new can be built, the old structure must be fully mourned and dismantled. You have already experienced the dissolution of your motivation. Now you must make it conscious. This is a ritual of release. I invite you to take out your journal and write a letter, a farewell letter to your old self, to the high achiever, the people pleaser, the relentless striver. Acknowledge her. Thank her for keeping you safe for so long. Her strategies, born of fear, were brilliant adaptations for survival, but her time is now over. Mourn the loss of the certainty she provided. Mourn the loss of the external validation she chased. You might write, "To the woman who believed her worth was in her exhaustion, thank you. I release you now with love." This is not an act of judgment. It is an act of profound compassion. You are consciously letting go, creating a clean, empty space for the new to arise. The second stage is the heart of Jung's practice, active imagination. Now that you have created space, you must learn to listen to it. Active imagination is a form of dialogue with your own unconscious. It is how you begin to hear the whispers from the new life that is gestating in the darkness. The practice is simple. Find a quiet moment, sit with your journal, and you invite the emptiness to speak. You can write at the top of the page, "A conversation with the void." And then you ask a question. Not, "What should I do with my life?" That is the ego's question, too big and too loud. You ask a gentler question. What is here for me now? What wants to emerge? And then you write. Whatever comes, without censorship, without judgment. It might be a single word, a strange image, a forgotten memory. You are not looking for an answer. You are opening a channel. You are learning to listen to the soul's subtle, symbolic language. This is what Chloe did. After months in the void, she sat down and asked, "What is here for me now?" The image that came to her was of her childhood hands, covered in paint. She had forgotten how much she used to love to draw. It wasn't a career plan. It wasn't a grand purpose. It was just a flicker, a tiny spark of aliveness in the dark.
And this leads us to the third stage, symbolic living. The new, self-driven motivation does not announce itself with a lightning bolt. It arrives as a golden thread, a quiet, subtle pull of curiosity. Your only job is to follow it, without demanding to know where it leads. Chloe's image of painted hands was a golden thread. The next day, she didn't enroll in art school. She did something much smaller. She went to a store and bought a small set of watercolors and a sketchbook, for the first time in 20 years. That evening, instead of scrolling on her phone, she sat and painted a simple leaf that she had found on her walk. And as she mixed the greens and the browns, something remarkable happened. She felt a quiet pulse, a gentle warmth in her chest. It wasn't the hot, anxious fire of her old ambition. It was the cool, steady glow of her soul, happy to be seen, happy to be expressed. This is the nature of soul motivation. It is seasonal. It comes and goes. There are times for intense creation and times for deep rest. It does not obey the calendar of the external world. It is mysterious. It does not follow a straight line. It meanders like a river, trusting its own current. And it is sustainable. It does not burn you out because it is not a fuel you consume. It is a wellspring, endlessly replenished from within. Your purpose is not a destination you must find. It is not a job title or an achievement. Your true purpose is to become a vessel for the expression of your own unique soul. It is to follow the golden threads of your curiosity, one by one. A book that calls to you from a library shelf, a sudden urge to walk in the woods, a conversation that makes you feel alive. These are the breadcrumbs. This is the soul's way of leading you home. The emptiness you feel now is not the end of the story. It is the clean, white, empty page upon which a far more beautiful, far more authentic story can finally be written. It is the sacred pause between the death of who you thought you were and the birth of who you truly are. The work now is not to strive. It is to listen, to follow, and to trust that the same intelligence that guides the seasons and turns the tides is at work within you, even now, in the sacred, fertile darkness.
Today, we have walked into the heart of one of the most misunderstood and sacred experiences on the human journey, the dark night of the soul. We have reframed this profound emptiness not as a failure, but as a fallow season, a necessary, fertile darkness. We have learned that the motivation that died was not your true motivation. It was the persona's motivation, an engine fueled by the hot, anxious energy of fear. Its death is not a tragedy. It is a liberation, a sign that your shadow work has been successful. You have starved the part of you that lived on external validation, creating the space for your authentic self to finally breathe. We have given you a practical survival guide for this winter of the soul, the gentle art of minimum viable maintenance, the quiet strength of leaning on structure when inspiration is gone, and the profound courage of conscious communication. These are the tools that allow you to honor your inner process while navigating the demands of the outer world. And finally, we have mapped the path of resurrection, a gentle, allowing process of emergence. It begins with conscious dissolution, the compassionate farewell to the person you had to be to survive. It deepens with active imagination, the art of listening to the whispers of the void. And it comes to life through symbolic living, the practice of following the golden threads of your own quiet curiosity, trusting them to lead you home. The emptiness is not empty. It is a womb.
And what is being gestated within you is a new kind of motivation. A motivation that is cool, magnetic, and sustainable. A motivation that flows not from a sense of lack, but from a wellspring of inner fullness. It is the quiet, powerful, unfolding expression of your soul. This journey requires a faith that is almost radical in our modern world. The faith to believe that doing nothing is a sacred and productive act. The faith to trust that in the silence, a deeper intelligence is at work. The faith to know that you are not lost. You are simply on a path that has no map, because it is a path that only you can walk. But what if this entire process, the deep perception that led you to see the prisons, the courage that allowed you to escape them, and the profound transformation that led you into this sacred void, what if all of this is not just a sign that you are healing? What if it is a sign that you are fundamentally different? A sign of a rare, highly evolved personality type that society often misunderstands and therefore pathologizes. What if the traits that have caused you so much pain are not defects, but upgrades? That profound and life-altering possibility is where our journey will take us next. For this week, your invitation is to practice the art of patience, to tend to your own fallow field. Choose one small act of trust in your own process. Will you write the farewell letter to your old self? Will you spend 5 minutes in dialogue with your emptiness? Or will you follow one tiny golden thread of curiosity just to see where it leads? The letter, the dialogue, or the thread? To honor this sacred pause in your life and to connect with others who are also in the quiet of their own winter, share your choice in the comments below. You are not alone in this darkness. We are here, waiting with you, for the slow, inevitable, and beautiful arrival of your spring.